in retrospect, I think one of the core identities of our team is I felt like we played incredibly tough, competitive, gritty, defensive focused basketball. And, you know, I think that's really at the core of how Dennis plays. I think, you know, in canvassing the league and doing research around a player like him, it comes back that Dennis is a player that other teams hate to play against, but his teammates love to play with because he has that kind of nasty tenacity, grit, and that's really at the center of how we play and how we win. And so he really folds in perfectly to that. And then I think he gives us offensively just another elite playmaker, both on the ball or, you know, on the ball in a pick and roll situation or off the ball as a scorer. So he really just fits us perfectly. He's been a player we've pursued, not just in this trade deadline, but before. You know, we pursued him aggressively. So to be able to finalize the transaction and bring him to the Lakers is really satisfying. I think it's easy to fall into complacency when you win a title and to just say, hey, let's just run it back. But at the same time, I think my school of thinking is always, let's find ways if we can even get better. Every offseason, let's get better. And I think we never want to just settle. And I think this was an opportunity to get better. It's hard to lose a player like Danny. He was an ultimate professional and really filled a great role for us and played well. But overall, we just feel like this addition of a younger player to our core and for the future was something that we couldn't pass on.
Okay, we're going to go next to Kyle Goon.
Hey, Rob, you mentioned yourself just now that, you know, you guys have been interested in getting Dennis Schroder, and I think we've heard that may go back, you know, a year or two. What was sort of the genesis point where you thought, hey, maybe this guy can be helpful to us, and why has it been tough to work out until this moment?
Well, I think he's been a player that's been in high demand. I think that's I'm echoing. I think maybe someone's not on mute, but Dennis has been a player that has been in high demand around the league is my sense. And so I think when a player's in high demand, it's tough to trade for them and get them. I have to say that working with Sam Presti and Rob Hennigan and the Thunder was great. Those guys are both very detail-oriented, sharp individuals, and we had a lot of conversations. You know, I think there's a misperception about trades around the league that it's, you know, a GM picks up the phone and calls another GM and says, hey, I'll trade you this for that. That's absolutely not how trades work at all. I mean, it's usually more of a dance and more of a long-term process. Working with those guys was great. So I guess that would be my answer to your question.
Okay, and now we're going to go to Dan Weike.
Hey, Rob. Good to see you. How has the condensed sort of nature of this week, in terms of, you know, the trade window opening to the draft last night to, I mean, whiplashing into free agency tomorrow, how has that kind of changed the way that you guys would approach sort of an off season? And then I guess in a general sense, what are some of the things you guys are looking to accomplish Friday and beyond in free agency?
Yeah, I think it's important. Again, I think if you look back over the last 2 or 3 seasons, we've really wanted to stay, you know, somewhat consistent and methodical in our approach and get lost in the work. And I think it would be really easy to fall into the trap of being reactionary when you have like a condensed system and a condensed set of dates. But our preparation for this period of time, you know, started months ago. And, you know, there's been a lot of planning and thought around it. So it was really more waiting for the NBA dates to finally get released and then start affecting our plan. But I don't think just because it's a condensed time or it's coming faster than some people expected means that we're not prepared for the moment. And I think we'll just stay kind of methodical in our approach and trying to get better. Our ultimate goal for the 2020-21 season is, of course, to defend the title. And we want to put in the work with the draft trade that we did last night and then heading into free agency that starts on Friday to optimize our goal to be in that position.
Okay, we're going to go next to Bill Oram.
Hey, Rob. Good to see you.
Bill, what's your hat? I love Zoom because we can. What is?
This is a hat from a bar in eastern Wyoming.
Okay.
The Invasion Bar, which references the Washington County cattle wars of 1890.
Hats always tell a story, and I'm glad you had one behind yours. It's impressive.
I'm glad I knew the answer and it wasn't something I just got at like Urban Outfitters or something. You mentioned not wanting to just settle after winning a championship and not get complacent. And this being a bold move. Do you view this kind of as your bold move for this offseason? Or how much more aggressive do you think you can be as you build this roster toward December 1st? And how different or the same beyond Schroder coming in do you expect this roster to look?
Yeah, I think in terms of whether there will be another bold move or not, I think we try to stay as fluid to a process as we can and not sort of pinning ourselves with binary decisions like that was our bold move or that wasn't, but just staying fluid because you guys know how this business is. The NBA seems to turn over every couple days with opportunities. One trade sets off a chain reaction where all of a sudden others could become available. So I would say that we try to stay fluid to that and really not pin ourselves into a corner. But at the fundamental sort of focus, we'd like to keep as much of our core players together to repeat as possible because continuity is obviously incredibly important. We had, I think, one of our strong points in the bubble, and I know all of us on the call talked about this in Orlando, was just part of the mental grind and challenges of playing away from family and friends for 100 days and being in a bubble was just how we operated together. And I think the team that came out of the bubble with the trophy, I think probably in addition to having the right talent, also had just the right chemistry to survive, kind of the Lord of the Flies experiences in the bubble. And so we don't take that lightly. Like this is a group of guys that fit, that work together, and we'd love to keep our core as close as we can. But if there's opportunities to get better and to address needs like we did with Dennis, then we'll take advantage of those.
Okay, next up, Dave McMenamin. Do you have anything for Rob? Yep. Okay, we'll go on to Alan Sliwa then.
Hey, Rob. You mentioned one thing on Schroder. You said he's a player that some teams will hate to play against, but teams love playing with. How much does that come into play for you that when you made this trade, that this is the type of player that he's going to be relentless, he's never going to back down? How important is that when you were, obviously putting together this deal, aside from his stats, because we know his stats are great?
Yeah, I think the way that we built the roster last year, and it was really played out in the playoffs, was we did want to be the team that kind of played the hardest and the nastiest and with the most confidence that as any other team. And I think a lot of teams felt that way about the Heat in terms of how they played, and the Lakers and Heat obviously both ended up representing their conferences in the finals, but that's something that we want to continue. I think the combination of high IQ players, but that also play with like a tenacity and a high level